Welcome, everyone, to a channeling session. Tiara and I have not done one of these in a while. So, if you guys come across our YouTube page, please like, subscribe, and comment. Today, we have something very special in store. We are going to talk to authentic twin flames. They are Hindu gods, they're Hindi gods. Their names are Shakti and Shiva, and Shakti is the feminine energy of the twin flame connection, and Shiva is the masculine energy of this twin flame connection. And I figure the way that dating has evolved on this planet in over, the past 20 years, even for Tiara and I, because us millennials, we have a very unique perspective on life because we had a period of our lives before tech really blew up. And so we kind of had that more old school, human interaction. We'd pick up the phone, like we used to have dial-up internet or even before we had access to internet. And so like interacting with the opposite sex or just people of the same sex, just interacting in general, where we weren't doing it from behind screens. And obviously, technology has brought a lot of convenience to our lives, which is awesome. Like, we're obviously very grateful for those conveniences, but it also has disconnected us. And now we converse through phones and we're texting all day long and it's hard to get people to even want to meet in person, and we've lost interpersonal communication skills, and we've lost the value of person to person interaction. And so I have been talking with Shakti and Shiva, and I was like, I would love it if you guys would participate in this channeling session with Tiara and I and see if you guys can share your wisdom about what is the masculine role, what is the feminine role. And because I feel like this has been lost because of feminism, I feel like this has been lost because of societal programming towards men, like telling them to buck up, be a man, don't feel your emotions, don't express your emotions. You're a man, you're not meant to do that. And so between feminism, societal programming, trauma, wounding, we've all, you know, pointing fingers at each other like everything is everyone else's fault. And it's I have referenced this before, it's kind of like become the battle of the sexes.
Yep.
And so I would love it if we could just talk to these amazing energies who really embody masculine energy and feminine energy and help get their message out to the collective, because that's what TR and I are here to do.
Yes. So I'm going to be the channeler and Allie the sitter. We both can channel. So sometimes what happens is like energies will come through on either side, which is possible. Um, but we've channeled these entities many times and they are very beautiful energies. So I'm going to settle myself and we will connect.
Yes, let's get started.
Okay, I have Shakti.
Shakti, welcome to our channeling session. How are you?
I'm so great. I love doing these.
I love that you love to do these. We've been doing this for a while now, and we feel like every entity doesn't want to be here sometimes. So,
Well, that's not me.
so let's start with, can you share a little bit about you and your story with Shiva and what being an authentic twin flame means to you, and how, like, what you see happening on Earth right now and amongst the collective when it comes to distortions around feminine, masculine, and how we interact with each other?
Yes. So I'd like to start off by just explaining a little bit about what it means to be an authentic twin flame I do remember sharing something of this effect for your podcast a while back, but I don't mind sharing a little bit of a reminder just because I know that there's a lot of misunderstanding and distortion around twin flame dynamic. Essentially, a twin flame is an entity that is bound or connected to a counterpart energy that acts as a perfect total mirror. So you can think of it as two halves of the same whole who are both whole but also separate. Now, I know that sounds like a contradiction, but in spirituality, it is possible to be of both or of the same. We walk separately as two separate entities, but we are always energetically bound and connected. We are always mirroring each other. And in that, we teach each other lessons around many different things. But the most important lesson is always about love and finding your way back to love. So we've had many incarnations on Earth as separate entities. And our journeys have always, in some way, mirrored or reflected to the other what it is we need to learn about ourselves. This is a journey that has taken thousands and thousands of years. I don't want it to seem like this is something that can be attained or achieved in one incarnation. It takes a long, long time to find that place of wholeness, especially when incarnating on such a dense energetic space as such as Earth. In that, we have, through thousands of years of time, found our way back to wholeness. First, needing to find our way back to wholeness and separation, and in that, back to wholeness as one. Because again, we are mirrors. So, in this journey, the goal is not necessarily about your counterpart, it's about yourself and finding wholeness as a separate entity from that energetic space. That is where you can ground a divine union.
So you reference perfect mirror. What does that mean?
Well, it means that we mirror to each other all the aspects about ourselves that need healing, that need recognition. All of the lessons that need to be learned are mirrored in this other individual perfectly. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have soulmates or other divine counterpart connections along our journey, mirroring some of these things to us in different ways. But your twin mirrors to you everything, every piece of you that needs to be looked at and reflected upon. I hope that makes sense.
So I have a question. So if not everyone is a twin flame, because we know how rare the twin flame dynamic is, and we have billions of people on this planet who just so happen to believe that they are quote unquote twin flames. So I'm assuming even if people are not, I think people get attached to the title, but what Tiara and I have been trying to spread the message is that it's not about the title because there's so many different other types of soul connections. There's soul mates, there's divine counterpart, there's soul family, there's all these different type of ways that we can be connected to other people. It's just I don't know why the masses have got so attached to the title of twin flame. But I'm assuming that the other soul connections that I just mentioned have significance with the lessons that needed to be learned with like the projecting and mirroring and lessons within the connection, even though it's not the title of twin flame.
Yes, that's exactly it. I mentioned that we do and did have other divine counterpart connections that still were valuable and that still served a purpose as far as giving us a very specific needed lesson. It's the same thing for anyone else. You can find generally all the lessons you need in varying different types of divine counterpart connections.
Very interesting. So, since you are the feminine energy, can you talk about what it means to be in the feminine energy and what it's like to embody that energy and what role we are supposed to play in a masculine's life?
There is a lot of distortion in the collective when it comes to the divine feminine essence and how to embody it and the role that it plays. At its core, the divine feminine, she still acts as a very valuable mirror to the masculine. She inspires the masculine. In embodying her feminine essence, that in and of itself sparks something within the masculine that wants him to, that encourages and inspires him to be a better masculine. That's why these connections are so significant and important. And when that gets lost, it also does affect the masculine who sort of loses his place in the interplay of masculine and feminine energy. Not only does she inspire, but at its core, the feminine yields, she nurtures, she heals, she supports, she receives. Uh, and so when a feminine embodies all of those elements and aspects, even if she's just working through specific lessons that are meant to get her there, that does energetically impact the masculine as well. So it's a very delicate interplay of energies because masculine cannot exist without feminine. Feminine cannot exist without masculine. Both must find balance in order to achieve wholeness.
I think where a lot of people get confused, and I'm sure that this has to do with feminism, and I don't want to disrespect feminism. Like, I understand, like, women, we exist on this planet too, and we want equal things, like equal rights and equal pay, and, like, I understand why women, fought for these things, they wanted to gain some independence. But I feel one of the big distortions around relationships is the submission piece. It's like people, like men, just think like, oh, women are supposed to submit to us. And I want to get your take on what submission means to you and any advice for women who just don't agree with needing to submit to their masculine.
I agree that submit probably isn't the best perspective. It probably also isn't the best term to use because in submission, there's an aspect of like giving away control. And the idea of submission, oftentimes there are masculines who want to dominate or control the feminine. And that's not what the divine feminine essence is meant to be. Divine feminine is meant to yield, not submit. She is meant to allow and hold space for the masculine to lead in a way that makes her feel safe and supported. It's not about dominance and it's not about control.
Okay, what's the difference between submission and yielding?
Yielding just means she lets her guard down, that she trusts in her masculine enough to allow the space to take initiative and support her and make her feel protected and safe. In submission, the feminine gives away total control to the masculine so that he may dominate and make all choices and decisions for her in various aspects of her life.
That's very interesting. Okay, so while I have you here, I want to go back to energetic chords because I know we've had a conversation about energetic chords and I know that they're significant, but how do people navigate these chords? Because I've had them cut before. I've had them cut by aura healers, I've had them cut by entities, and for some reason, they always just come back, and I'm just like, "How do people get rid of these cords? Is it possible to get rid of these cords? Do they just naturally fall off if people learn the lesson? Why can't they fall off if a person doesn't want to be corded to the other person? It's just, do we have any free will or say about who we're corded to?" I have all these questions about cords.
I don't know that an incarnate has say over the courting she receives. It's usually determined prior to incarnation by the higher self and the soul. So the incarnate doesn't necessarily have say on the course itself. However, the incarnate can learn specific lessons tied to the courting, which would increase the likelihood of the cords separating. But usually it must be done on both sides of the courting.
Okay, yeah, and that's my question. What if the other person doesn't learn the lesson or doesn't want to learn the lesson or just wants to like stay courted to the person? I mean, is that fair to the other person who wants to learn the lessons and not be courted anymore?
I can't speak to the fairness in it all, but if either side finds acceptance in that, then being courted to one another shouldn't be as much of an issue.
That is very interesting. Okay. So I know I've asked you this before, but what is your take on, especially in 2025, that men just so happen to be getting more feminine and that they are losing, I can't remember if it was an X chromosome or a Y chromosome, but I'm just wondering what your opinion is on men losing this chromosome and naturally becoming more feminine and how that affects dating in the modern day.
The loss of the Y chromosome is a very interesting phenomenon to witness. I do think it is the karmic consequence of the distortion of the masculine and feminine dynamic. The distortion has caused women to step into a more masculine essence and the masculine to step into more feminine essence, creating a distortion that gets grounded or manifests as, for example, a degradation of the Y chromosome. I think if the collective understood the impact of this distortion and works to find balance within it, that perhaps we wouldn't see such a degradation happening, or at least not happening at the speed that it is. Actions have consequences, and as we know, energies manifest. Do I think it's possible to shift and change this progression? I do think it is, but it's going to take a mass change, a massive change in the collective, a shift in perspective and mindset around power and control dynamics, around really understanding the delicate interplay of masculine and feminine and how that looks, and understanding that the dynamic at its true essence and at its natural core is beneficial to humanity.
Very interesting. So, can we talk to Shiva a little bit about masculine energy and the masculine role and what advice he might have for the males on this planet navigating 2025?
Absolutely. She was a man. We are. Hello, Allie.
Hello.
You have questions.
Very, I do. There's a lot of interesting conversation happening here. Obviously, I know that you know what's going on this planet in the dating world, and it's very sad because I feel like men and women are just giving up on dating, giving up on relationships, giving up on wanting to be married, about wanting to be connected. Everyone is just, there's a lot of mental stuff going on, and there's a lot of victim stuff going on, and there's just, I mean, I would like to reach and help as many people understand, masculine, feminine energy, like why both sexes need each other, even though, that's probably going to trigger some people.
There was a time when the masculine knew his place and role when it came to the dynamic interplay between masculine and feminine. And the unfortunate reality is that at this time, that role has gotten lost. And many masculines don't know how to navigate this new space. They don't know their roles. They don't know where they belong within it. They don't know how to navigate dating or navigate interacting with the opposite sex. I think there are many reasons for that. You mentioned feminism, and I do think that that is a contributing factor. But I think that there are things that have happened socially, sociologically, that have created a sense of fear amongst the collective on both sides. People are afraid of being hurt. They're afraid of taken advantage of. They have negative experiences from their past that they let influence their beliefs around the opposite sex, around dating. I think that this fear amongst the collective is ultimately what's keeping the sexes from understanding each other, interacting with each other, communicating and understanding the role they play in each other's lives and how significant it is. A masculine's place is exactly as my counterpart expressed. He is the leader, the protector. He grounds, he gives, he makes his feminine feel safe. It is from this place that many masculines strive to be and want to be at their core. But the unfortunate reality is that this space isn't held for the masculine any longer.
I had a really interesting debate with someone about how men are supposed to be or are more emotionally intelligent than women are. And I thought it was a very interesting debate and some very interesting findings, but I'd like to get your take on that statement.
I think there's truth to that, but my perspective on that comes from the way men have been programmed away from their emotional intelligence. They've been programmed to suppress their emotion, not to express them, that they're a bad that emotions are a bad thing, that it makes them weak or feminine. Without this distortion, I do think you would see masculines who carry near equivalent emotional intelligence to the feminine. I can't necessarily say it's more so than the feminine, But I do think that men carry much more emotional intelligence than the collective has been led to believe.
Now, does that have anything to do with, how we bring up young boys and, the programming of, boys don't cry, that's for girls, or, if you're not supposed to feel, you're a man, you like just, you're supposed to be tough. And, it's like we train them into believing that they have to be these big personalities, like tough protectors, providers, like suppress the feelings, repress the feelings. And unfortunately, that just happens from a very young age, childhood.
Yes, that's correct. That's exactly what I'm referring to, this distortion created in the collective that makes men feel like they are not allowed to feel or cannot feel or shouldn't express. There's also a subset of the collective that even demeans men or makes them feel less than for expressing their emotion. All distortions that are not helpful.
And what's your take on I think Shiva said the Y chromosome disappearing and men are becoming more feminine?
It's a very unusual phenomenon. You have to understand that when men lose their place and when they are bred and programmed to believe that carrying emotion is a negative thing, the distortion creates the distortion created causes them to lose their space and it causes them to embody or embrace feminine notions or feminine essences because they're programs that, and I have seen this programming in the collective, that what women want is a sensitive guy. They want a man who is emotional, but in a way that distorts them away from their essence. It's a very interesting and delicate, energetic play that has been so distorted and turned that we now have a collective of masculines who have taken it to an extreme. So you see two competing beliefs, but for whatever reason, the one that gets embodied and is having the most impact on the male collective is one that is shifting them into their feminine essence excessively or to an excessive or extreme degree, which is again why Shiva and Shakti have expressed that it's a very strange and unusual distortion to see. Men lose their place. They get programmed on one end that expressing emotion is dangerous. They get programmed on the other end that they need to be sensitive, that that's what women want. And for whatever reason, the result is what we see now.
So, do you have any advice for any of the masculines who will come across this? Well, we hope come across this.
I don't think that many masculines recognize or fully understand the extent of the programming and how it is affecting them. I don't think they fully understand that they've been programmed away from emotional intelligence, that they also receive programming that is distorted in regards to what they think the feminine wants. What I think many masculines need to understand and recognize is that if they want to find peace in the chaos, they need to go back to their core energetic essence of what it means to be a masculine and embrace their emotions and find outlets for emotional expression outside of a feminine. There are many masculines that don't have access to a feminine. I think it would be beneficial for many of them to find access within their own sex that allows them a safe space to express authentically. It doesn't make them feminine or the word that some like to use, gay or queer. It's normal and healthy. And in that, and finding their core way back to their masculine essence and embracing that, that is ultimately how they find their way back to the feminine. It's time to step away from the fear and the programming and go inward. Find other masculines who are seeking and doing the same thing. There are many masculines that are incarnate right now who are trying to undo the distortion in the programming. Male groups, divine masculines who see the distortion and want to correct it. I would implore many of these masculines to seek something like that out to support their journeys.
So is it safe to say that women need to do the same thing? Like I believe like do you believe that both sexes, men and women, need to go back into like women's circles or man circles and reconnect to that feminine essence of ours? Because so many women, Shakti's right, so many women have transitioned into their masculine energy on for their dominance of equal rights and, you know, wanting to be breadwinners in their careers and, you know, be independent and, you know, we don't need a man because we make our own money now and we are out earning men. And so it's like, what do we need men for? And that is unfortunately a lot of the programming that the feminist movement has instilled in women.
I do agree that the shift needs to be done on both ends, on the masculine end and the feminine end. There are many feminines who do embrace their feminine essence and are striving to embody it. But there are also many feminines who have so heavily attached to the programming that they find doing such things as a weakness or fear that it will make them inferior. The unfortunate thing is that for a very long time, society has been um, overly masculine and very trying to align on this term patriarchal. And it's only natural that the feminine would want to shift away from such heavy handed patriarchy into something that's more balanced. However, sometimes when these shifts happen, we vacillate to the other extreme in a way that is also distortive. The collective needs to find balance between both, between what it means to carry the masculine essence and what it means to also carry the feminine essence, because ultimately, both men and women carry both. It's just a matter of understanding how to do so from a balanced space, one that doesn't adhere to societal distortions or programming.
Very interesting. So, do you believe that if men reconnected to their masculine essence and find that balance within themselves, do you believe that the Y chromosome could correct itself?
I do think anything is possible, and I do think that if that's the intention of the collective, that it's absolutely feasible, but it would take a doing on a very mass scale.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting to see how human evolution continues to evolve and the distortions and the programming. And it's just, there's a lot of dense energy on Earth, as Shakti said.
Correct.
What is your take on energetic cords? I know a lot of people who don't like them, and a lot of people don't know how to get rid of them.
I think energetic cords serve a very important purpose, whether the incarnate is aware of that purpose or not.
And so do we get courted from a soul contract, just a soul connection? Are we just courted to everyone we meet, or is there something more significant there? Like, who decides who we're courted to? Does the soul decide?
Yes, it's determined prior to incarnations, especially if there are very critical lessons that the incarnates must learn. And if you interact with someone who carries that specific lesson that you need, there's a good chance that there will be courting. Now, that's not necessarily always the case, but I would say for the most part, that's usually how it operates.
Okay, that was actually really helpful because now I understand why we get courted and how. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, thank you both so much for joining in our channeling session. TR, do you have any questions for either one of them?
Okay, I do have a question. How long did it take for you guys to achieve union in years, human years?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
Approximately 50 to 60,000 years.
Wow. So I think that's a message that goes out to anyone who thinks that they're a twin flame on this planet right now and thinks you can resolve all your issues in this incarnation.
Okay, I have some more questions. Um,
Okay.
as a split soul, I'm just very curious. What type of challenges did you guys run into or discover on your journey that were specific to being twin twins? Okay, who's answering? Chastity. Sometimes when there were instances when we interacted in the physical, the triggering would be very, very immense. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if it's just because when you are a twin flame, the triggering is immense in that manner, or if it's just because that's just the type of individuals we were. We were quite triggered. But when we interacted and oh she's okay, touched, the triggering would be so extreme that it would drive us further apart for some time.
Yeah, Shiva's over here and he just said that one of his really big lessons is ego, like narcissism, ego, not letting that not letting his ego try to control the situation, which was one of his really big lessons with Shakti.
Interesting. So is someone like I mean, I don't know if it's like this if you're not a split soul, but is someone like more of the mental and someone's like more of the emotional, or are you guys like both?
He's saying, okay, so sorry, I have Shiva over here, and he
Okay,
is saying that they every human embodies both masculine and feminine qualities because that energy exists within all of us. But
right.
he's saying that traditionally in his incarnations, he has traditionally gone more into the masculine role, and Shiva triggered a lot of his emotional insecurities and,
Mm,
trying to teach him lessons around, um, operating from a place of love and not operating from a place of ego, and he says that was one of his hardest challenges because, you know, ego is very dominant energy, it's very controlling energy, it's very like,
it's hard.
"No, I'm the man, and I'm the independent one," and,
Yeah.
it's like, "I'm the problem solver, I'm the leader, you do what I say because I know how to lead."
Man, that resonates so hard. Okay, she was over here saying and she was more of the emotional piece and was often triggered by his control and
Yes.
egoic issues.
Yes.
Wow. So, okay, she was over here like the triggering would drive them further apart before they come back
Yes.
together again.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what he said. He's like, "I wanted nothing to do with."
She said same. It's not funny. It's not funny. It's just so reminiscent of my own journey in so many ways, and it's just very validating. Wow. Okay. How on earth did you guys overcome that? Like, I know it took a very, very, very long time, but I get the sense too that perhaps there were some very hard lessons, especially on Shiva's side when it comes to like stepping back and having to break apart the ego. Now,
He said,
as the mental body,
"Oh, she."
like that's what you know, I understand that piece. I'm not as understanding about what happens on the feminine emotional side because I'm the mental aspect. So I'm just curious to know what that looks like on either side.
Okay, so Steve was saying that breaking down his ego was one of his hardest challenges and took him thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and that he wouldn't have been able to do it without Shakti's guidance. And
Mm,
both sides needed to do their own healing work, their
right.
own healing in order for them to come together from a place of love and not a place of ego and wounding and
Mm,
trauma and triggering.
right. Shakti. Okay. Agreed. For me, it was really, really, really having to work hard to overcome the hurt that I felt from him.
Right. I just see it in Tiara's face, you guys. Like,
Right. I'm just like, "Dang, wow. Okay. Very interesting." Did you guys have, I'm assuming you guys did have like excellent support guides, divine intervention to support you guys along the way, considering how difficult of the journey this must have been. Siva, oh, Shakti's saying absolutely. It was essential.
yeah, Shiva just said he's like, we wouldn't have made it if we hadn't.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. God, I commend you guys so much for achieving that. That is incredible. And it's inspiring too.
So I want to thank you both. Unless Tiara has any more questions. I don't have any more questions. Tiara, do you?
No, I don't have any more questions.
So I just want to thank them for joining in on the session. I hope this helps any of you who are struggling with relationships or just wanting to heal yourself and get back to your feminine essence or your masculine essence. They are, I mean, you just witnessed the conversation between them. They have been through this. They have been at this for almost 60,000 years in human years. So
Yeah, yeah,
we commend them and we thank them and for sharing their wisdom, and I hope we can do more of these in the future.
yes. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll have another channeling session for you soon.